Welcome back and thanks for listening. This is Seeking God in Ungodly Circumstances Part 1 with a special interview with Dena Behringer. Hello, Dena.
Hi, how are you?
And so this is a little bit different podcast here, and what we're going to try to do is, I think in the past few days we've recognized also some people who feel like they're stuck in their situation and they can't get out of it, or they're seeking God but just can't. They feel like they don't have a way. And what we want to do with this podcast here is that no matter what type of situation you're in, God gives you a way out. If you keep seeking, and it's in Matthew chapter 7. If ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open for you. And if you keep seeking and you keep knocking, God's going to give you a way out. But you have to seek God in order to find that way out. So no matter what type of situation you're in, seek Him, call His name out, and He will give you a way out of that situation. But you have to be looking, and you have to have faith in that process to get out of the situation. Dena, this is going to be a very intimate discussion that we're having. It's about her personal life and about how she grew up. She was raised in a pagan home and came out with a full, close relationship with Jesus. And the only reason she was able to do that is because of that verse in Matthew 7. She kept seeking, she kept knocking, she kept searching, and she never quit. Dena, tell us, just start us out about your childhood, your past.
Well, first of all, can I just add one thing to the scriptures that you were reading?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say Corinthians 10:13, and it says, "No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will provide a way out so that you can stand up under it." And I feel like that is what God did for me.
Kind of start out with your story about.
Well, so when we were discussing all this, and I was reading this book, Hearts of Fire. It's about multiple women's stories who have been in the faith and persecuted and still living in it and trying to find a way out of their persecution. It kind of brought this up to me, and I just wanted to share this story with everyone. So just to start out,
So this is going to be a very personal discussion. So go ahead and start with your work stuff there.
So one day I was at work, and there was a girl there that I worked with. She was talking all about basically feeling haunted from her early childhood by what she felt were spiritual things happening in her home, specifically to her. And just listening to her story, I just remember experiencing some of those things, I believe because of the home I grew up in, where there was a lot of negative spiritual things going on. And so I started to talk to her and with her about this, just kind of let her know and share some of the experiences I had had and the upbringing I had about being raised in a pagan home, parents who were involved with witchcraft and actual leaders of a witchcraft group. So at the end of my story and talking to her about all these things, she just came right out and said, "Well, how did you come out of that as a Christian?" And at that very moment, I realized that that was my testimony. I had a testimony. I had lived a Christian life, been a Christian for a while, but I never realized. I always heard everybody talking about their testimony and share your testimony with everyone, but I never knew what my testimony was. But when she asked me this, I realized right then and there that was my testimony.
Well, let's dig in more to that, because see, everyone, no matter how big or how small, has a testimony, and whether they see it or not, God is somewhere in that testimony somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so let's start out. You said you were saved at age 5?
Yes.
Basically, okay. Start us out there and let's go deeper into your testimony here.
Well, so when I was 5 years old, my kindergarten teacher She took a liking to me. And we basically spent all of our lunches every day outside. And towards the end of the school year, she asked me if I wanted to ask Jesus into my heart and save me. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so she took me into the office and she prayed with me, and I asked Jesus into my heart. I feel like at that moment he put my name in the Lamb's Book of Life. But then I went home, a home where we weren't very religious, whatever, Christian wise, I don't know. I don't really know. I didn't really live much of a Christian life necessarily, but I feel like I was saved.
So at age 5 is when all this happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? At that moment when she prayed over you, and at that moment, did you feel any different right there at that moment?
I honestly don't remember.
Right. And that's one of the things that I have spoken to other people about, and I'm just going to bring this up, we'll get right back into this, is that a lot of people, when they get baptized and they want to be saved and born again, they say, well, I don't feel anything after I'm baptized. I don't feel anything after I'm saved. But some people have a delayed experience, after they've been saved. And some people, they do have a spontaneous experience with God after they've been saved or baptized. It comes to you after you keep seeking after that baptism, and make sure that you understand all that and being saved, and someone prays over you and saves you. Because I remember that one time when I was saved, I felt like it didn't happen for almost 3-4 days. We were together at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and eventually it's just like it hit me out of the blue, because it doesn't happen to you immediately. Mm-hmm. And it happens to you after a certain while, and when it hits you, because you see things in a different perspective, you see things in a different light. And I wanted to call you, but you worked nights, and this was during the day when this happened, and I tried calling you, she didn't answer, so I ended up calling my aunt and telling her about it. And then later you called me back, and I was telling you, I'm saved, and I can see things in a different way, and it's just amazing what it feels like to be saved by God. Mm-hmm. I just wanted our listeners to know that when you're saved, if you don't feel like nothing is evolving in you, believe me, it's working. But back to being age 5, you were prayed over, you were witnessed over, and you prayed together, and you accepted Jesus into your heart. Mm-hmm. That's the seed. That's the mustard seed that started to grow in you.
Right.
Okay. So take us from there and kind of tell us what evolved after that.
We went to church, but I don't really feel like anybody in the family got anything out of it.
But at the age of 10 or 12, kind of backing up a little bit, your parents, they started getting involved in witchcraft. Mm-hmm. Do you know what led them to even start that initial?
So I don't know what led them to that. I just have speculations about my dad. My mom says that my dad is the one who led her into it. And she always used I don't know what you could call it, but she thought that she was just being submissive to him. Which the Bible says, submit to your husband as unto the Lord, not just submit to your husband regardless of what he's doing. So
yes,
I don't.
Unto the Lord is the most important part of that.
So I don't agree with that, but that's what she said. So anyway, my dad is the one who got them involved in it, and I feel like probably from some spiritual open doors in his childhood, because his parents were divorced, his mother had depression, he had to live with his dad and stepmom, who was, from my understanding, a terrible, controlling person. And just not a very good childhood. And so I feel like maybe there's some open doors spiritually for him in his childhood, and no religious background whatsoever. And so somehow he found someone involved in witchcraft and probably felt like he was accepted, more accepted, so that he could be part of a group kind of thing finally. That's just, again, my speculation with him. My mother, however, tells you that first of all, she was being submissive to my father, which I already told you my argument with that. But secondly, she had been to a church as a child. She told the pastor there that she was having dreams. And I can't remember what she told me she was dreaming, but it sounds like she was having, like, God speak to her in her dreams. But she went and spoke to the pastor at her church as a kid, And the pastor told her basically, you're crazy. God doesn't speak to people like that. That's not real. You need to find something else. That's not okay what you think is happening. But she felt like, I think she got lost, confused, hurt.
I can see that's a stumbling block, and pushes you off into a different direction.
Because I just want to say that God does speak to people through dreams. The Bible says that he speaks to people through dreams, and the pastor should have led her, I feel like, in a different direction.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But your dad, following his ways, and to me, I've had a relationship with your dad. I've known your dad before he passed away in 2014. He was a nice guy. I mean, a great guy to get along with, a great guy to talk to. Just didn't believe in his ways, but that didn't affect our relationship. Mm-hmm. It's just that we knew where each of us stood.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But your dad was a great guy. But it's still, to me, a mystery what led him into that area of his life.
Right. And like I said, all I really have is speculation.
Yeah. But they became, I want to dig more into area of your life. This is the most important part, because this is the part where the importance of this whole podcast is you were in the middle of this whole situation. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of this situation, their practice of witchcraft grew mm-hmm. and grew and grew even more to where they were actually leaders.
Right.
So talk to us more about them becoming leaders. What progressed in your home? What did you see? What did you feel? What did you smell? And I mean, kind of like just the evil that was coming through. Because you told me before, and this is, just some discussion that you and I have personally being married and stuff, that you would have to get out of the house and leave the house because you felt things, and you would get in your car and you would drive. Mm-hmm. But tell us really deep down with some great detail about what progressed, what made them become such good leaders. You have discussed things with me like, they'll be in a circle calling and stuff like that, and you would have to leave. And then something about the rock. So kind of go into some more detail.
But this all started really when I was I can't remember, somewhere between age 10 and 12. What we would do is we would go every, I don't know, it was a certain day of the week, like say every Thursday night or whatever, we would go to their friend's house. I remember they lived in Irving, they lived in an apartment. We would drive there, and everybody would get together, have some chips and dips, snacks, whatever kind of thing. And then all I knew was it was dark and there was lots of candles, and you talk about smells. They always burned incense all the time.
Was there any chanting or anything like that, words being said to pull the demons out of?
See, I never heard any of that stuff until the one time I was old enough. I do remember a couple times a lady in that apartment bursting out of the room crying and just boo-hooing and stuff, and somebody else would come out with her and try to console her, but I had no idea what was going on.
But they had a tree. I remember their house.
Oh yeah, that was
there.
So.
Talk
then
about what's in the backyard.
So they became that was when they were involved with somebody else's group. They became leaders. I don't know how you go about that. I don't know how that works, why that became the situation. I guess they broke off from that group and started their own group or something. Yeah, then they started having it in our home. I mean, I don't remember I don't remember exactly what age I was when that happened. I do remember being very angry. I should kind of go back to this a little bit, because I remember being angry, and I remember my friend coming over and me ranting and raving to her about it. And I guess just knowing what they believed in. My mom would talk to me about it sometimes. My dad would talk to me about it sometimes. And just knowing what they believed in, that's where I feel like I realized that I was saved.
Did they ever try to pull you into their group?
I don't believe so, but they knocked down, well, that was again later. When I talked to them about Christianity stuff, they knocked that down. But that was when I was 16. But when I was still young and they started doing stuff at our home, I remember having my friend over, and I was so mad at them, and I just didn't understand how they could believe the things they believed. I remember that night that I was talking to my friend, we were sitting outside and the sun was setting, and I was talking about how beautiful the sun is, and the moon was coming up, and we were amazed by the beauty of, again, nature. And I believe, more in God than and want to praise God. God is the one who created it all. I don't believe in Mother Earth and, Mother Nature and stuff like that.
You knew at that time, as even being young, that you need to glorify God, and you knew that idolatry was wrong in your heart,
And
because in your mind, you really haven't been presented with a lot.
with
It's just
Christianity.
all right. It's just everything is happening in your spirit.
It was
your
in my heart
Right.
because of when I was saved when I was 5.
That's good.
So, yeah, I was very angry. And then I do remember one time, again, being angry, talking to my mom about it and stuff. And that's the rock situation that we talk about. And
What happened with that rock?
so, for whatever reason, we were discussing their religion.
I mean, what did the rock symbolize at first, though? What
Well,
was
I
it
mean,
supposed to
I
symbolize?
don't really know. They used rocks for different things. They used them for healing. I don't know the extent of everything really, because they use incense for things. They use rocks for things. They have multiple gods they pray to for different things. They just believe in nature having healing processes or features and things like that. She was trying to show me that's another point. She was trying to show me that it was real. So she had me sit and hold this rock, this like crystal ball kind of thing, for a long time, and just sit and hold it and concentrate on it and things like that until I felt something out of it. And one time I did feel like a kind of an electric zap through my hand kind of thing. And I don't know what that meant, how it got there or why it happened. I don't really know anything. I just remember saying, yeah, okay, I felt that. Okay, what about it? And that's one thing she still will not hold over me, but remind me of, like, you felt it, it's real. The thing is I have always known it's real. I know that what they're doing is real. I know that what they're doing is inviting everything besides godly things into our home. That scares me. It has always scared me. I remember, other than anger at them for believing the way they did, always feeling fear.
Of them or what's in your house?
What's in the house.
But they never hurt you. Like
they
never
did
brought
anything.
harm
No,
to you.
I think
like
that they had great hearts, and like you said,
they were just misled at one part in their life that kind of knocked them off into a different direction. And
I just was fearful. I was always scared of the dark. I was always scared to be at home alone. I did experience some spiritual things, like I talked to you about, that girl at work talking to me about, and I said, oh yeah, I've experienced things like that also, and just things that were scary and not okay. So when I was older and had a car, I would always ask them, when they were leading it out of our home, I would always ask them, please don't start until I am able to leave. And because they would have it like every Saturday night or something. I would always go out with my friends or do something on Saturday nights to avoid being there while they were doing whatever they did. That's part of, I don't know, the trees in the backyard. They had a circle of trees where they would go and practice their stuff out there if the weather was nice. If not, they would do it in the living room, I guess. And one night I was not able to leave in time, or I just didn't realize they were getting started so early or something. And I remember getting ready to go, and I walked downstairs, and that's the only time I really witnessed what they were doing. And it was dark, incense going, candles lit. They're all dressed up in crowns and robes and holding hands and dancing in a circle and chanting, if you will, whatever, that kind of thing. And I couldn't get out of there and get away from there fast enough.
Right. And these trees,
They were cedar trees.
they were cedar trees, and they
in
were
the shape of a circle.
But they looked like they'd been there for a while. They were kind of hedged over a little, correct? So it's to me that always disturbed me, because I remember being at their house and either mowing the yard or doing something that they asked me to do, or your mother asked me to do, and I could not walk into this circle.
Right.
You can feel.
You witnessed something spiritual in there.
Right. You can feel that it is not a good place to be. And and to our listeners, you got to realize that everyone preaches about the greatness of God, but you also have to realize the darkness of evil. If you don't recognize it, and if you don't respect it, you can get sucked into it. And that's what the question I had about you. It's like, the great thing about your parents, and we're not condemning anybody. I feel like that your mother got pushed away from a pastor. I don't think she would have went this direction. I think she still has an opportunity to come back.
People who are involved in this, I feel like they're blindfolded.
Exactly.
And we pray for the devil to remove the blind, or for God to remove the blindfold the devil has on it.
The good thing is that it's just amazing to me living in a home like this. You came out great. You weren't harmed. You were well fed. You went to a good school. You were very well taken care
Right.
of. That you weren't. It's just amazing how God had His hand over you and shielded you. You knew certain things were wrong, and like I said, it wasn't through your knowledge, because
Right.
you weren't going to Bible
wasn't
school.
through my
You weren't really
Christian knowledge,
you weren't really picking up the Bible every day and knowledging yourself. It was something spiritual inside you that God, like you
Planted
said,
there.
your name was written, and God was protecting you, and He's going to protect you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving you that way out.
Right.
And through accepting Christ and praying to Him and seeking Him and knocking and looking for Him, He's going to give you that way out. He's going, and His way out sometimes isn't just opening a door for you. It's just like you were in this environment. Your way out was just He was protecting you.
Mm-hmm.
He was shielding you, and your way out was basically an unknown knowledge that this was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
It's like in
So-
my spirit.
So don't look for, well, God didn't give me a way out because that sliding glass door didn't open, or this door didn't hear open, or that phone call didn't ring. Sometimes it's more spiritual inside of you. So look more on the spiritual realm, and sometimes it's things that we don't even understand that He gives us a way out.
Listen to your gut and listen
They
to your
listen
heart.
to your gut and your heart. Exactly.
I just want
Yeah.
to say real quick, I remember not realizing how abnormal it was to be so fearful as I was as a child until I moved out. And I remember
That's good. I
One-
remember that.
Yeah, I moved out of their home, and I lived in an apartment. It never occurred to me. I would go home to a dark apartment at night, and I would walk in, and I never felt fear. I would turn on the light. There was nothing in me that was fearful, but I didn't realize it or think anything of it until I had to go back to their home a week or two after I'd been in my apartment. Had to go back to their home while they were out of town to pick up some things for my apartment. And I remember driving up to the house. My headlights were shining on the house, but everything was dark and there was nobody in there. And this overwhelming fear came over me again. Just like,
This was at your mom and dad's house.
yes. And I was like, I don't want to walk in there. I was scared to walk in there again. And that fear, flooded me again. I remember just getting in, getting what I needed, and getting out of there as quickly as possible. And it didn't really hit me until I got home. Again, I got home to my apartment that night, and I thought, here I am walking into a dark, empty apartment with no fear. Over there, where I was just at, I had,
Where you grew up at.
yes, where I
you
grew
stayed.
up. Yeah.
Yes.
I was very fearful to walk in there, but I wasn't fearful to walk into my empty, dark apartment. The evil spiritual realm that they had opened without, I don't know, without realizing and not thinking anything of it, whatever you want to say, I don't know, but it's real and, it's palpable, you can feel it. But it was there at my parents' house, but it had not been brought into my apartment where I now lived. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So that's to me that's a great testimony. You were saved when you were 5, and thank God that this woman in your class or your teacher had faith, but she also had faith with action.
Mm-hmm.
She put some action behind her faith, and she saw something in you maybe, and she put faith into action. Then later on, your mother tries to speak to a pastor, and the pastor, we don't know. We're not knocking pastors or anybody like that, but didn't have any action behind that because I feel like that was the turning point in your mother's life.
Right. And that was when she was a child, I guess. But
Right.
yeah. Didn't really grow up in a, Christian, like you said, didn't grow up in a Christian home, reading the Bible, that kind of thing. When I was 16, I had some friends that I'd been friends with since about 4th grade or so. They became Christians, born again at age 16. and we were really close friends. And I just remember watching them and seeing what they had in their lives and realizing whatever's changed in them, I want that too. And so, but I feel like God was speaking to me at that time also, saying like, you've already been saved. You've already been born again. You just need to rededicate your life. You need to dedicate your life to me. I did that the best I knew how. Some people have a strong walk with God. I stumbled with God for a while until I found my way.
I think everyone does a little. Yeah, everyone does in their own way. But I want to brag about something just for a second, because how to really say this, but I was seeking God before we met, so, we were both seeking God when we were dating. Believe me, there were a lot of evil maneuvers, or I don't even know what the right word to say is. There's just a lot
evil going on in the background
that did not want us together at
Yeah.
all to get married.
Right.
And if we weren't seeking God together, we were going to church together, we were praying together, we were, we baptized Caitlin together, and we baptized Macy. That was, I think, even before we got married. I believe we were both of us just dating. We're hot for God. And if we weren't seeking God, and I really do believe that the dark side, the evil side, knew that if the two of us coming together was not a good thing.
Right.
And when we got married, I feel like we actually skyrocketed to God, and we became closer and closer and closer. And I started hearing from God from the first time when we were married, and things like that. So that's great. So we are going to have two parts to this podcast because it is an hour long. So this is the end of part one. We will have part two out shortly, right after we publish this one. But if you do have any questions for Dena or anything, please email us at christkingdom4you@gmail.com. We'll try to answer any questions, pray for you, talk to us about your situation. Thank you.